Well, hello, hello. Good evening, good morning, and good afternoon. I'm Manasong, a lewd, degen, out and professional multiverse wizard, specializing in well-being and Waifusmith. Now, floating by my shoulder is Grammary, a succubus who's always open to gain more acolyte. But the milking session is for after the stream because right now, it is time for some more reading. Today we'll be continuing The Hobbit, what number are we? Part 4, fourth stream. Whew, I am a bit of out of breath because I had a sudden thing that I needed to carry, a delivery, and I had to carry something heavy. So that's why I'm late, like right as I started appears. Okay. Well, I was already late actually before starting stream, but just as I start stream I have to get ready to see. Let me catch my breath. Hello, Dark Chaos. Thank you for redeeming the first. Congrats, you get your whole light with Grammar, where you can do anything you want with her. Remember, she's pretty good with illusions. Thank you for the luck. Judy, I love you, my lucker. They are taking the dwarves to Forestguard. Yes, very much, yes, indeed. They are taking them. They have already been taken to Forestguard 2. Actually, they're actually taking the dwarves to Forestguard 2. Not even one. This is the second time they're captured in a sequence. Well, actually, it's just how do I call it? Thorin got captured by the elves. The other dwarves got captured by the spiders. But Bilbo is doing his little rampage, and he has mostly solved that issue, I think. I think that now the spiders have abandoned them. Rolling. Where was it? The spiders, hear the light of union. They had a chance. The rest and draw breath. Okay, they escaped the spiders. But after they escaped the spiders, they noticed that Thorin was missing. Oh, whoopsie. Oh yeah, let me check the audio levels. I think the music is loud. There we go. Now it should be better. I am indeed using World of Warcraft music. These videos of World of Warcraft music. I never played it, but they're pretty good for background, especially for a game, for a stream like this of reading, for a reading stream. Anyway, let me check something, and we'll start right up. I have way too many windows open. There we go. No, not this window. This one. Let me organize this shit. I've also just taken my coffee for the day, so it is not like I am very awake. Feeling my eyes feeling quite tired lately. I think I need to rest them a little bit better. I'll find a way to exercise them a little bit better. Anyway, chair please. Let me get comfortable. Let me get comfy in my little place. There we go. Just as the music starts to pick up, let's actually begin. Chapter 9, Barrels Out of Bound. The day after the battle with the spiders, Bilbo and the dwarves made one last despairing effort to find a way out, or they died of hunger and thirst. They got up, and staggered on in the direction which 8 out of 13 of them guessed to be the one in which the path lay. But they never found out if they were right. Such a day as there ever was in the forest was fading once more into the blackness of night, when suddenly out sprang the light of many torches all around them, like hundreds of red stars. Out leaped wood elves with their bows and spears and called the dwarves to halt. There was no thought of fight. There was no thought of a fight, even if the dwarves had not been in such a state that they were actually glad to be captured. Their small knives, the only weapons they had, would have been of no use against the arrows of the elves that could hit a bird's eye in the dark. So they simply stopped dead and sat down and waited. All except Bilbo, who popped on his ring and slipped quickly to one side. That is why, when the elves bound the dwarves in a long line, one behind the other, and counted them, they never found or counted the Hobbit. Nor did they hear or feel him trotting along, well behind their torchlight as they led off their prisoners into the forest. Each dwarf was blindfolded, but that did not make much difference, for even Bilbo, with the use of his eyes, could not see where they were going, and neither he nor the others knew where they had started from anyway. Bilbo had all he could do to keep up with the torches, for the elves were making the dwarves go as fast as they could, thick and wary as they were. The king had ordered them to make haste. Suddenly the torches stopped, and the Hobbit had just time to catch them up before they began to cross the bridge. This was the bridge that led across the river to the king's doors. The water flowed dark and swift and strong beneath, and at the far end were gates before the mouth of a huge cave that ran into the side of a steep slope covered with trees. There, the great beaches came right down to the bank. Their feet were in the stream. Across the bridge, the elves thrust their prisoners, but Bilbo hesitated in the rear. He did not like the look of the cavern mouth, and he only made up his mind not to desert his friends just in time to scuttle over at the heels of the last elves, before the great gates of the king closed behind them with a clang. Inside, the passages were lit with torchlight, and the elf guards sang as they marched along the twisting, crossing, and echoing paths. These were not like those of the goblin cities. They were smaller, glass deep underground, and filled with a cleaner air. In a great hall with pillars hewn out of the living stones sat the elven king on a chair of carven wood. On his head was a crown of berries and red leaves, for the autumn was come again. In the spring he wore a crown of woodland flowers. In his hand he held a carven staff of oak. The Elven King's Gate. Why is it sideways like this? Nodding. Nodders. Hang on. I'm going to turn it on, because I use it to check the sound level. I get the feeling like they're loud. Okay, but it is not a golden crown. It is a crown of leaves. Crown of berries and red leaves. Imagine taking the berries out of your own crown and eating them. That would be fun. That would also be a mockery of human crowns. That would also be a fun mockery of human crowns, eating the berries out of your own crown. You have a golden crown. A king with his own food supply. Yeah, that makes for an interesting actual magical crown in a high fantasy world. The crown of the elves gives them food. It's also a fun mockery of the metal and precious metals and gems crowns of humans and dwarves. Yeah, you think you're a badass, huh? I don't even need a crown of gold. I just make some leaves. I just need some leaves together, put some berries in it, and then eat my crown later. Was he calling? Was he calling English? What do you think? What do you call this in English? Where is translate? Imagine a lettuce crown. A lettuce crown. Make a crown of lettuce leaves. And then you eat it later, once it starts to go bad. Wait, over here. There we go. Come on, laptop. My laptop is so slow to turn on. This is annoying. And this is in oh, it's not new. It's like 5 years old, I guess. I think it's 5 years old. Wait, where is the? I see the age of my laptop. Is there like? When did I buy it? I have no idea. Okay. It should be like 5 years old, I guess. My laptop or more or less. Anywho, anyhow. Let's turn this picture sideways. How do I turn this sideways? Oh, here. Ooh, nice. The trees, the bridge, and the little door to the king. Just a little door, nothing too fancy. The elves don't need to be fancy. They're already born fancy. The elves don't need to buy and to do anything fancy. No. The prisoners were brought before him, and though he looked grimly at them, he told his men to unbind them, for they are ragged and weary. Besides, they need no ropes in here, said he. There is no escape from my magic doors for those who are once brought inside. Long and searchingly, he questioned the dwarves about their doing, and where they were going to, and where they were coming from, but he got little more news out of them than out of Thorin. They were surly and angry, and did not even pretend to be polite. What have we done, O king? What have we done, O king? Said Balin, was the eldest lad. Is it a crime to be lost in the forest, to be hungry and thirsty, to be trapped by spiders? Are the spiders your tame beasts or your pets, if killing them makes you angry? Such a question, of course, made the king angrier than ever, and he answered, It is a crime to wander in my realm without leave. Oh, turn on. Do you forget that you were in my kingdom, using the road that my people made? Did you not 3 times pursue and trouble my people in the forest, and rouse the spiders with your riot and clamor? After all the disturbance you have made, I have a right to know what brings you here. And if you not tell me now, I will keep you all in prison until you have learned sense and manners. Then he ordered the dwarves each to be put in a separate cell and to be given food and drink, but not to be allowed to pass the doors of their little prison until one at least of them was willing to tell him all he wanted to know. But he did not tell them that Thorin was also a prisoner with him. It was Bilbo who found that out. Okay, come on. Need to take a shot of insulin over here. Poor Mr. Baggins. It was very long time that he lived in that place all alone, and always in hiding, never daring to take off his ring, hardly daring to sleep, even tuck away in the darkest and remote corners he would find. For something to do, he took to wandering about the Elven King's palace. Magic shut the gates, but he could sometimes get out if he was quick. Companies of the Wood Elves, sometimes with the king at their head, would from time to time ride out to hunt, or to other business in the woods and in the lands of the east. Then, if Bilbo was very nimble, he could slip it out just behind them, though it was a dangerous thing to do. More than once he was nearly caught in the doors. They clashed together when the last elf passed. Yet he did not dare to march among them, because of his shadow, altogether innumerably as it was in torchlight, or for fear of being bumped into and discovered. And when he did go out, which was not very often, he did no good. He did not wish to desert the dwarves. And indeed, he did not know where in the world to go without them. Could not keep up with the hunting elves all the time they were out. But he never discovered the ways out of the wood, and was left wander miserably in the forest, terrified of losing himself, until a chance came of returning. He was hungry too outside, for he was no hunter. But inside the caves he could pick up a living of some sort by stealing food from store or table when no one was at hand. I'm like a burglar that can't get away, but must go on miserably bargaining the same house day after day, he thought. This is the dreariest and dullest part of all this wretched, tiresome, uncomfortable adventure. I wish I was back in my Hobbit hole by my own warm fireside with the lamp shining. He often wished, too, he could get a message for help sent to the wizard, but that of course was quite impossible. And he soon realized that if anything was to be done, it would have to be done by Mr. Bagging, alone and unaided. Eventually, after a week or two of this sneaking sort of life, by watching and following the guards and taking what chances he could, he managed to find out where each dwarf was camped. He found out there 12 cells in different parts of the palace, and after a time he got to know this way about very well. What was he surprised one day to overhear some of the guards talking and to learn that there was another dwarf in prison too, in a especially deep, dark place. He guessed at once, of course, that was Tori. And after a while he found that his guess was right. At least after many difficulties he managed to find the place when no one was about, and to have a word with the chief of the dwarves. Tori was too wretched to be angry any longer at his misfortune, and was even beginning to think of telling the king all about his treasure and his quest, which shows how low-spirited he had become. When he heard Bilbo's little voice at his keyhole, he could hardly believe his ears. Soon, however, he made up his mind that he could not be mistaken, and he came to the door and had a long whispered talk with the Hobbit on the other side. So it was that Bilbo was able to stake secretly Thorin's message to each of the imprisoned dwarves, telling them that Thorin, their chief, was also in prison close at hand, and that no one was to reveal their errand to the king. Not yet, nor before Thorin gave the word. For Thorin had taken heart again, hearing how the Hobbit had rescued his companions from the spiders, and was determined once more not to ransom himself with promises to the king of a share in the treasure, until all hope of escaping any other way had disappeared. Until, in fact, the remarkable Mr. Invisible Bagging, of whom he had begun to have a very high opinion indeed, had altogether failed to think of something clever. The other dwarves quite agreed when they got the message. They all thought their own shares in the treasure, which they quite regarded as theirs, in spite of their plight and still unconquered and the still unconquered dragon, would suffer seriously if the wood elves playing part of it. And they all trusted Bilbo. Just what Gandalf had said would happen, you see. Perhaps that was part of his reason for going off and leaving them. Bilbo, however, did not feel nearly so hopeful as they did. He did not like being dependent on by everyone, and he wished he had the wizard at hand. But that was no use. Probably all the dark distance of Mirkwood lay between them. He sat and thought till his hand nearly burst. But no bright idea would come. One invisible ring was a very fine thing, but it was not much good among 14. But of course, as you have guessed, he did rescue his friends in the end. And this is how it happened. One day, nosy and wandering about, Bilbo discovered a very interesting thing. The great gates were not the only entrance to the cave. A stream flowed under part of the lowest regions of the palace, and joined the forest river some way further to the east, beyond the steep slope out of which the main mountain opened. The main mouth opened, where this underground watercourse came forward from the hillside. There was a water gate. There, the rocky roof came down close to the surface of the stream, and through it a portcullis could be dropped right to the bed of the river to prevent anyone coming in or out that way. But the portcullis was often open, for a good deal of traffic went out and in by the water gate. If anyone had come in that way, he would have found himself in a dark roof tunnel leading deep into the heart of the hill. But at one point where it passed under the caves, the roof had been cut away and covered with great oaken trapdoors. These opened upwards into the king's cellars. There stood barrels and barrels and barrels, for the wood elves, and especially their king, were very fond of wine, though no vines grew in those parts. The wine and other goods were brought from far away from their kinsfolk in the south, or from the vineyards of men in distant lands. Hiding behind one of the largest barrels, Bilbo discovered the trapdoors and their use, and lurking there, listening to the talk of the king's servants, he learned how the wine and other goods came up the rivers, or overland to the long lake. It seemed that the arm of man still throve there, but built out on bridges far into the water as a protection against enemies of all sorts, and especially against the dragon of the mountain. From Lake Town, the barrels were brought up the forest river. Often they were just tied together like big rafts and pulled or rowed up the stream. Sometimes they were loaded onto flat boats. When the barrels were empty, the elves cast them through the trapdoors, opened the water gate, and out the barrels floated on the stream, bobbing along until they were carried by the current to a place far down the river, where the bank jutted out near to the very eastern edge of Mirkwood. There they were collected and tied together and floated back to Lake Town, which stood close to the point where the forest river flowed into the long lake. I find it interesting that the elf king likes wine made by man. It makes me so more quote unquote human to have him like enjoy a good alcoholic drink. And that elves are not exactly farmers themselves or craftsmen, they're just hunters, or whatever it is that elves do, because otherwise they could make their own wine and be snobbish about it. They could easily make their own wine. There was also something else that was I wanted to comment about that I kind of forgot. What was it? Thorin's message. A week. Oh yeah, his ring. His ring causes a shadow. Like he's invisible, but there's still a shadow. That's curious. I guess the ring is not exactly a physical. Yeah, I am bending light around me. That's why I'm invisible. Light doesn't touch me or reflect on me. No, the ring just makes him disappear, but his shadow is still there. Somehow he's still absorbing light. He's just not making the light in everyone's eyes is like more magical and interpretive than like a physical phenomenon. Anyway, for some time, Bilbo sat and thought about this Watergate and wondered if it could be used for the escape of his friends. And at last, he had the desperate beginnings of a plan. The evening meal had taken to the prisoners. The guards were tramping away down the passage, taking the torchlight with them and leaving everything in darkness. Then Bilbo heard the king's butler bidding the chief of the guards good night. "Now come with me," he said, "and taste the new wine that has just come in. I shall be hard at work tonight clearing the cellars of the empty wood. So let us have a drink first to help the labor." "Very good," laughed the chief of the guard. "Taste with you and see if it is fit for the king's table. There is a feast tonight and will not do to send poor stuff." When he heard this, Bilbo was all in a flutter, for he saw that luck was with him, and he had a chance at once to try his desperate plan. He followed the two elves until they entered a small cellar and sat down at a table, on which two large flagons were set. Hold on. There we go. Soon they began to drink and laugh merrily. Luck of an unusual kind was with Bilbo then. It must be potent wine to make the wood elf drowsy. But this wine, it would seem, was the heady vintage of the great gardens of Dorwinion. Not meant for his soldiers or his servants, but for the king's feast only, and for smaller balls, not for the butler's great flagons. Very soon the chief guard nodded his head. Then he laid it on the table and fell fast asleep. The butler went on talking and laughing to himself for a while, without seeming to notice, but soon his head too nodded to the table, and he fell asleep and snored beside his friend. Then in crept the Hobbit. Very soon the chief guard had no keys, but Bilbo was trotting as fast as he could along the passages towards the cells. The great bunch seemed very heavy to his arms, and his heart was often in his mouth, in spite of his ring, for he could not prevent the keys from making every now and then a loud clink and clank, which put him all in a tremble. First he unlocked Balin's door, and locked it again carefully as soon as the dwarf was outside. Balin was most surprised, as you can imagine, but glad as he was to get out of his wearisome little storeroom. He wanted to stop and ask questions, and know what Bilbo was going to do and all about it. "No time now," said the Hobbit. "You just follow me. We must all keep together and not risk getting separated. All of us must escape or none, and this is our last chance. If this is found out, goodness knows where the king will put you next. With chains on your hands and feet too, I expect. Don't argue. There's a good fellow." Then off he went from door to door, until his following had grown to 12. None of them any too nimble, what with the dark, and what with a long imprisonment. Bilbo's heart thumped every time one of them bumped into another, or grunted or whispered in the dark. "Drat this dwarvish racket," he said to himself. But all went well, and they met no guard. As a matter of fact, there was a great autumn feast in the woods that night, and in the house above, nearly all the king's folk were merrymaking. At last, after much blundering, they came onto Jesus Christ. At last, after much blundering, they came to Thorin's dungeon, far down in the deep place, and fortunately not far from the cellars. "Upon my word," said Thorin, when Bilbo whispered to him to come out and join his friend. "Gandalf spoke true, as usual. A pretty fine burglar you make it things when the time comes. I'm sure we are all forever at your service, whatever happens after this. But what comes next?" Bilbo saw that the time had come to explain his idea, as far as he could, but he did not feel at all sure how the dwarves would take it. His fears were quite justified. for they did not like it a bit, and started grumbling loudly in spite of their danger. "We shall be bruised and battered to pieces and drowned too, for certain," they muttered. "We thought you had got some sensible notion when you managed to get hold of the keys. This is a mad idea." "Very well," said Bilbo, very downcast and also rather annoyed. "Come along back to your nice cells and I'll lock you all in again. And you can sit there comfortably and think of a better plan. But I don't suppose I shall ever get hold of the keys again, even if I feel inclined to try." That was too much for them, and they calmed down. In the end, of course, they had to do just what Bilbo suggested, because it was obviously impossible for them. Oh, I could not hold that. This yawn. 172 yawn, damn. Because it was impossible for them to try and find their way into the upper halls, or to fight their way out of the gates that closed by magic. And it was no good grumbling the passages until they were caught again. So following the Hobbit down into the lowest cellars they crept. They passed a door through which the chief guard and butler could be seen, still happily snoring with smile upon their faces. The wine of Dorinion brings deep and pleasant dreams. There would be a different expression on the face of the chief guard next day, even though Bilbo, before they went on, stole in and kind-heartedly put the keys back on his belt. "That will save him some of the trouble he's in for," said Mr. Baggins to himself. "He wasn't a bad fellow, and quite decent to the prisoners. It will puzzle them out too. They will think we had a very strong magic to pass through all those locked doors and disappear. Disappear! I've got to get busy very quickly if that is to happen." Balin was told off to watch the guard and the butler and give warning if they stirred. The rest went into the adjoining cellar with a trap door. There was little time to lose. Before long, as Bilbo knew, some elves were under orders to come down and help the butler get the empty barrels through the doors into the stream. Those were in fact already standing in the rows in the middle of the floor waiting to be pushed off. Some of them were wine barrels, and these were not much used, as they could not easily be opened at the end without a deal of noise. Nor could they easily be secured again. But among them were several others, which had been used for bringing other stuffs, butter, apples, and all sorts of things, butter, to the king's palace. They soon found 13 with room enough for a dwarf in each. In fact, some were too roomy, and as they climbed in, the dwarfs thought anxiously of the shaking and the bumping they would get inside. Though Bilbo did his best to find straw and other stuff to pack them in as cosily as could be managed in a short time. At last, 12 dwarves were stowed. Thorin had given a lot of trouble, and turned and twisted in his tub and grumbled like a large dog in a small kennel. While Balin, who came last, made a great fuss about his air hose and said he was stifling, even before his lid was on. Stifling. What is this word supposed to be used like this? Oh, suffocating.
Stifling.
Stifling, okay. Where was I? Bilbo had done what he could to close holes in the sides of the barrels, and to fix on all the lids as safely as could be managed, and now he was left alone again, running around putting the finishing touches to the packaging, and hoping against hope that his plan would come out. It had not been done a bit too soon. Only a minute or two after Balin's lid had been fitted on, there came the sound of voices and the flicker of lights. A number of elves came laughing and talking to the sellers and singing snatches of song. They had left a merry feast in one of the halls and were bent on returning as soon as they could. Where is old Galleon, the butler? Said one. I haven't seen him at the tables tonight. He ought to be here now to show us what is to be done. I shall be angry if the old low coach is late, said another. I have no wish to waste time down here while the song is up. Ha ha! Came a cry. He's the old villain with his head on a jug. He's been having a little feast all to himself and his friend the captain. Shake him! Wake him! Shouted the others impatiently. Gillian was not at all pleased at being shaken or wakened, and still less at being laughed at. You are all late, he grumbled. Here am I, waiting down here, while you fellows drink and make merry and forget your task. Small wonder if I fall asleep from weariness. Small wonder, they say, when the explanation stands close at hand in a jug. Come, give us a taste of your sleeping drum before we fout you. No need to wake up the turkey yonder. He has had his share by the looks of it. Then they drank once round and became mighty merry all of a sudden. But they did not quite lose their wits. Save us, Galleon, cried some. You began your feast early and muddle your wits. We have stacked some full casks here instead of the empty ones, if there is anything in wait. Get on with your work, groaned the butler. There is nothing in the feeling of waiting on idle tosspot's arm. These are the ones to go and no others. Do as I say. Very well, they answered, rolling the barrels to the opening. On your head be it, with the king's full butter tubs and his best wine is pushed into the river, for the lake man to feast on for nothing. Row, 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 rolling down the home. If hope splash bum, down they go, down they bum. So they sang as first one barrel and then another rumble to the dark opening and was pushed over into the cold water by some feet below. Some barrels were really empty. Some were tubs neatly packed with a dwarf each. But down they all went, one after another, with many a clash and a bump, thudding on top of the ones below, smacking to the water, jostling against the walls of the tunnel, knocking to one another, and bobbing away down the current. It was just at this moment that Bilbo suddenly discovered the weak point in his plan. Most likely you saw it some time ago and have been laughing at him, but I don't suppose you would have done half as well yourselves in his place. Of course, he was not in a barrel himself, nor was there anyone to pack him in, even if there had been a chance. It looked as if he would certainly lose his friends this time. Nearly all of them had already disappeared to the dark trapdoor, and get utterly left behind, and have to stay lurking as a permanent burglar in the elf caves forever. For even if he could have escaped through the upper gates at once, he had precious small chance of ever finding the dwarves again. He did not know the way by land to the place where the barrels were collected. He wondered what on earth would happen to them without him, for he had not time to tell the dwarves all that he had learned, or what he had meant to do once they rode out of the wood. While all these thoughts were passing through his mind, the elves began very merry, the elves being very merry, began to sing a song around the river door. Some had already gone to haul on the ropes, which pulled up the particulars at the water gate, so as to let out the barrels as soon as they were all afloat below. Okay, this is the long one, damn. This is the most karaoke you're gonna get out of me. For I am not a merry man, and I do not sing. Unless it's poetry inside a book. Anyway. Down this swift dark stream you go, back to the lands you once did know. Leave the halls and caverns deep, leave the northern mountains steep, where the forest wide and dim, stooping shadow grey and green. Flow Far beyond the woods of trees, out in the whispering breeze, past the rushes, past the reeds, past the marshes, waving weeds, through the mysteries that wide, up from here a pool of night. Follow, follow stars that leap up the heavens cold and steep. Turn when down comes over land, over rapid, over sand, south away and south away. Take the sunlight and the day, back to the pasture, back to me, where the kine and oxen feed, back to gardens on the hills, where the berry swells and fume, under sunlight, under day, south away and south away, down the swift dark streams you go, back to as you once did know. Now, the very last barrel was being rowed to the doors. In despair and not knowing what else to do, poor little Bilbo caught hold of it and was pushed over the edge with it. Down into the water he fell, flush into the cold dark water with the barrel on top of him. He came up again, spluttering and clinging to the wood like a rat, but for all his efforts he could not scramble on top. Every time he tried, the barrel rolled around and ducked him under again. He was really empty and floated light as a cork. Though his ears were full of water, he could hear the elves still singing in the cellar above. Then suddenly the trapdoors fell to with a boom and their voices faded away. He was in the dark tunnel floating in icy water, all alone, for you cannot count friends that are all packed up in barrels. Very soon a great patch came into darkness ahead. He heard the creak of the water gate being hauled up, and he found that he was in the midst of a bobbing and bumping mass of casks and tubs, all pressing together to pass under the arch and get out into the open stream. He had as much as he could do to prevent himself from being hustled and battered to bits. But at last, the jostling crowd began to break up and swing off, one by one, under the stony arch and away. Then he saw that it would have been no good even if he had managed to get astride of his barrel, for there was no room to spare, not even for a hobbit, between its top and the suddenly stooping roof where the gate was. Out they went under the overhanging branches of the trees on either bank. Bilbo wondered what the dwarves were feeling and whether a lot of water was getting to their tops. Some of those that bobbed along with him in the gloom seemed pretty low in the water, and he guessed that these had dwarves inside. I do hope I put the lids on tight enough, he thought. But before long he was worrying too much about himself to remember the dwarves. He managed to keep his head above the water, but he was shivering with the cold, and he wondered if he would die of it before the luck turned, and how much longer he would be able to hang on, and whether he should risk the chance of letting go and trying to swim to the bank. The luck turned all right before long. The eddying current carried several barrels close ashore at one point, and there for a while they stuck against some hidden root. Then Bilbo took the opportunity of scrambling up the side of his barrel while it was held steady against another. Up he crawled like a drowned rat, lay on top, spread out to keep the balance as best as he could. The breeze was cold, but better than the water, and he hoped he would not suddenly roll off again when they started off once more. Before long, the barrels broke free again and turned and twisted off down the stream and out into the main current. And he found it quite as difficult to stick on as he had feared, but he managed it somehow, though it was miserably uncomfortable. Luckily, he was very light, the barrel was a big one, and being rather leaky, he had now shipped a small amount of water. All the same, it was like trying to ride, without bridle or stirrups, a round belly pony that was always thinking of rolling on the grass. In this way, at last, Mr. Baggins came to a place where the trees on either hand grew thinner. He could see the paler sky between them. The dark river opened suddenly wide, and there it was joined to the main water of the forest river, flowing down in haste from the king's great doors. There was a dim sheet of water, no longer of a shadow, and on its lighting surface there were dancing and broken reflections of clouds and of stars. Then the hurrying water of the forest river swept all the company of casks and tubs away into the north bank, in which it had eaten out a wide bay. This had a shingly shore under hanging banks and was walled at the eastern end by a little jutting cape of hard rock. On the shallow shore, most of the barrels ran aground, though a few went on to bump against the stony pier. There were people on the lookout on the banks. They quickly pulled and pushed all the barrels together into the shallows, and when they had counted them, they rubbed them together and left them till the morning. Poor dwarfs! Bilbo was not badly off now. He slipped from his barrel and waded ashore, and then sneaked along to some huts that he could see near the water's end. He no longer thought twice about picking up a supper uninvited if he got the chance. He had been obliged to do it for so long, and he knew now only too well what it was to be really hungry, not merely politely interested in the dainties of a well-filled water. Also, he had caught a glimpse of a fire through the trees, and that appealed to him, with his dripping and rag clothes clinging to him cold and clammy. At last, they escape. But yes, I kind of expected some of them to drown with a plan like that inside a barrel of water. Oh no, it will be no surprise if they actually drown. And the ads are about to start. Oh, might as well do a pause now before I start the reading. Yeah. Before I start this new paragraph, this is a good place to make a quick little 3 minutes break. I'm gonna grab something more to eat. I just had a coffee and a little bit of panettone. Panettone. Let me. Yes. We have. Is it like around the world? Panettone, Italian type of sweet bread. Yes, I love sweet bread and fruit cake. Because it's like it's better than cake, because cake is too sweet for me because of diabetes. I like the chocolate ones. I don't like fruit cake. I don't like the fruit panettone as well. I will eat them, but oh, panettone is widely available in South America. Okay. It has like less carbs, which is better for me, so less sugar. It's popular in Italian communities. Oh, you guys across the world don't get the wonders of panettone. You're not panettone enjoyers, I guess, most of you. But every market over here has like every market has their own like locally made. Every bakery has panettone. No, not every bakery, but quite a lot of them. You see them more in markets. And it's cheap, and it's not caloric. Better than cake. It not have a lot of carbs. It's a perfect little snack with a little bit of coffee. Yes, indeed. But now I'm gonna get a little bit more salty to give me a bit more sustenance for the afternoon. So see you guys in 3 minutes. Starting ads now. Alright, I'm back. I ate some peanuts. Peanuts! Yeah, no, they're sold by like kilograms over here. In a specific place, they're in a specific market, they're sold like by the kilograms. And they're very good. What do you call this? Bulk. They're sold in bulk by grams. And it's better than the packaged ones. Kinda surprising. I guess it's just quality. I guess it's just the brand. But still pretty nice. Very fun. No. My water is running out. I forgot to grab more. I'll go back and grab more and move in. But for now, let's continue. There is no need to tell him much of his adventures that night. For now, we are drawing near the end of the eastward journey and coming to the last and greatest adventure. We must hurry on. Of course, helped by his magic ring, he got on very well at first, but he was given away in the end by his wet footsteps and the trail of drippings that he left wherever he went on or sat. And also he began to snivel, and whenever he tried to hide, he was found out by the terrific explosion of his suppressed sneezes. Very soon there was a fine commotion in the village by the riverside. Bilbo escaped into the woods carrying a loaf and a leather bottle of wine, in pie that did not belong to him. The rest of the night he had to pass wet, as he was and far from a fire. But the bottle helped him to do that, and he actually dozed a little on some dry leaves, even though the year was getting late and the air was chilly. He woke again with a especially loud sneeze. It was already grey morning, and there was a merry racket down by the river. They were making up a raft of barrels, and the raft elves would soon be steering it off down the stream to Lake Down. Bilbo sneezed again. He was no longer dripping, but he felt cold all over. He scrambled out as fast as his stiff legs would take him, and he managed just in time to get on to the mast of cask without being noticed in the general bustle. Luckily, there was no sun at the time to cast an awkward shadow, and for a mercy he did not sneeze again for a good while. There was a mighty pushing of poles. The elves that were standing in the shallow water heaved and shoved. The barrels, now all lashed together, creaked and fretted. "This is a heavy load," some grumbled. "They float too deep. Some of these are never empty." They had come ashore in the daylight. "We might have had a look inside," they said. "No time now," cried the raftman. "Shove off!" And off they went at last, slowly at first, until they had passed the point of rock where other elves stood to fend them off with poles. Then quicker and quicker as they caught the main stream and went sailing away down towards the lake. They had escaped the dungeons of the king and were through the wood, but whether alive or dead still remains to be seen. Chapter X. A warm welcome. Let me get a little bit more comfortable. I need to have a proper posture for this. Otherwise it gets a little bit bad on my old man back, on my old dog back. 30 years in dog years, I'm decrepit. Thankfully I have, succubus magic to keep me awake. Where do you think some of that life force you'd give Grimmy goes to? Yeah. The day grew lighter and warmer as they floated along. After a while, the river rounded steep shoulder of land that came down upon their left. Under its rocky feet, like an inland cliff, the deepest stream had flowed, lapping and bubbling. Suddenly, the cliff fell away, the shore sank, the trees ended, then Bilbo saw a sight. The lands opened wide about him, filled with the waters of the river, which broke up and wandered in 100 winding courses, or halted in marshes and pools dotted with islots. Dotted with, I can't damn it, English, why are you so difficult?
Isles.
Isles. Don't even pronounce the S. Isles. Marshes and pools dotted with isles on every side, but still a strong water flowed on steadily through the mist, and far away, its dark head in a dark cloud, there loomed the mountain, its nearest neighbors to the northeast, and the tableland adjoining it to them could not be seen. All alone it rose and looked across the marshes to the forest. The lonely mountain. Bilbo had come far and through many adventures to see it, and now he did not like the look of it in the least. As he listened to the talk of the raftmen and pieced together the scraps of information they let fall, he soon realized that he was very fortunate ever to have seen it at all, even from this distance. Dreary as had been his imprisonment and unpleasant as was his position, to say nothing of the poor dwarfs beneath him, still, he had been more lucky than he had guessed. The talk was all of the trade that came and went on the waterways and the growth of the traffic on the river. As the roads out of the east towards Mirkwood vanished or fell into disuse, and of the bickerings of the lake men and the wood elves about the upkeep of the forest river and the care of the banks. Those lands had changed much since the days when dwarves dwelt in the mountain. Days which most people now remembered only as a very shadowy tradition. They had changed even in recent years, and since the last news that Gandalf had had of them. Great floods and rains had swollen the waters that flowed east, and there had been an earthquake or two, which some were inclined to attribute to the dragon, alluding to him chiefly, with a curse and an ominous nod in the direction of the mountain. The marshes and bogs had spread wider and wider on either side. Paths had vanished, and many a rider and wanderer too, if they had tried to find the lost ways across. The elf road through the wood, which the dwarves had followed on the advice of Bjorn, now came to a doubtful and little used end at the eastern edge of the forest. Only the river offered any longer a safe way from the skirts of Mirkwood in the north to the mountain shadowed plains beyond, and the river was guarded by the wood elf's king. So you see, Bilbo had come in the end by the only road that was any good. It might have been some comfort to Mr. Baggins shivering on the barrels if he had known that news of this had reached Gandalf far away and given him great anxiety, and that he was in fact finishing his other business, which does not come into this tale, and getting ready to come in search of Thorin's company. But Bilbo did not know it. All he knew was that the river seemed to go on and on and on forever, and he was hungry, and had a nasty cold in the nose, and did not like the way the mountain seemed to frown at him and threaten him as it drew ever nearer. After a while, however, the river took a more southerly course, and the mountain receded again, and at last, late in the day, the shores grew rocky. The river gathered all its wandering waters together into a deep and rapid flood, and they swept along at great speed. The sun had set when, turning with another sweep towards the east, the forest river rushed into the long lake. There it had a wide mouth with stony-like, cliff-like gates at either side, whose feet were piled with shingles. The long lake. Bilbo had never imagined that any water there was not to see could look so big, so wide, that the opposite shores looked small and far. but it was so long that its northerly end, which pointed towards the mountain, could not be seen at all. Only from the map did Bilbo know that away up there, where the stars of the Wain were already twinkling, the running river came down into the lake from Dale, and with the forest river, filled with deep waters what must once have been a great deep rocky valley. At the southern end, the double waters poured out again over high waterfalls and ran away hurriedly to unknown lands. In the still evening air, the noise of the falls could be heard like a distant roar. Not far from the mountain of the forest river was a strange town he heard the elves speak of in the king's cellars. It was not built on the shore, though there were a few huts and buildings there, but right out on the surface of the lake, protected from the swirl of the entering river by a promontory of rock which formed a calm bay. A great bridge made of wood ran out where on huge piles made of forest trees was built a busy wooden town. Not a town of elves, but of men, who still dare to dwell here under the shadow of the distant Dragon Mountain. They still throve on the trade that came up the great river from the south and was carted past the falls to their town. But in the great days of old, when Dale in the north was rich and prosperous, they had been wealthy and powerful. And there had been fleets of boats on the waters, and some were filled with gold and some with warriors in armor. And there had been wars in these which were now only legend. The rotting piles of a greater town could still be seen along the shores when the waters sank in a drought. But men remember little of all that, though some still sang old songs of the dwarf kings of the mountain. Roar and train, in the race of Durin, and of the coming of the dragon, and the fall of the lords of Dale. Some sang too that Roar and Train would come back one day and go with flowing rivers through the mountain gates, and all that land will be filled with new song and new laughter. But this pleasant legend did not much affect their daily business. Oh, on the picture. Lake Town. Lake Town is also an inspiration for a place in one of my stories, but it's not like an important place for the lore. No, two places actually. One is not a permanent lake town, and the other is like a spy town, because the lake is so large they just build a town in the middle of the lake so they could spy the other shores. Pecula town, because of course it has to be like Greek or Latin or whatever. Anyway, as soon as the raft of barrels came in sight, boats rolled out from the piles of the town, and voices hailed the raft's steerers. Then ropes were cast and oars were pulled, and soon the raft was drawn out of the current of the forest river and towed away round the high shoulder of rock into the little bay of Lake Town. There it was moored not far from the shoreward head of the great bridge. Soon men would come up from the south and take some of the casks away, and others they would fill with goods they had brought to be taken back up the stream to the wood elves' home. In the meanwhile, the barrels were left afloat while the elves of the raft and the boatmen went to feast in Lake Town. They would have been surprised if they could have seen what happened down by the shore. After they had gone and the shades of night had fallen, first of all, a barrel was cut loose by Bilbo and pushed to the shore and open. Groans came from inside, and out crept a most unhappy dwarf. Wet straws was in the straggling beard. He was so sore and stiff, so bruised and buffeted, he could hardly stand or stumble through the shallow water to lie groaning on the shore. He had a famished and a savage look, like a dog that had been chained and forgotten in a kennel for a week. He was storing, but you could have only have told it by his golden chain, and by the collar of his now dirty and tattered sky blue hood with its tarnished silver tassel. It was some time before he would even be polite. The Hobbit. Well, are you alive or are you dead? Asked Bilbo quite crossly. Perhaps he had forgotten that he had at least one good meal more than the dwarfs, and also the use of his arms on land, not to speak of a greater allowance of air. Are you still in prison or are you free? If you want food and if you want to go on with this silly adventure, it's yours after all and not mine. But better slap your arms and rub your legs and try to get me the... and try and help me get the others out while there's still a chance. Thorin, of course, saw the sense of this. After a few more groans, he got up and helped the hobbit as well as he could. In the darkness, floundering the cold water, they had a difficult and very nasty job finding which were the right barrels. Knocking outside and calling only discovered about 6 dwarves that could answer. These were unpacked and helped ashore where they sat rolling, muttering and moaning. They were so soaked and bruised and cramped that they could hardly yet realize they were released or be properly thankful for it. Wally and Bally were two of the most unhappy, and it was no good asking them to help. Buford and Beaufort were less knocked about and drier, but they lay down and would do nothing. Killy and Killy, however, were young for dwarves, and had also been packed more neatly with plenty of straw into smaller casks. Came out more or less mildly, with only a bruise or two and a stiffness that soon wore off. I hope ours never smelled the smell of apples again, said Philly. My tub was full of it. Smell apples everlastingly when you can scarcely move and are cold and sick with hunger is maddening. I could eat anything in the wide world now, for hours on end, but not an apple. With the willing help of Philly and Killy, Thorin and Bilbo at last discovered the remainder of the company and got them out. Poor fat Bomber was asleep and senseless. Dory, Nori, Ori, Oi, and Gloin were waterlogged and seemed only half alive. They all had to be carried one by one and laid helpless on the shore. Well, here we are, said Thorin, and I suppose I ought to thank our stars and Mr. Baggins. I'm sure he has a right to expect it, though I wish he would have arranged a more comfortable journey. Still, all very much at your service once more, Mr. Baggins. No doubt we shall feel properly grateful when we're fed and recovered. In the meanwhile, what next? I suggest Lake Town, said Bilbo. What else is there? Nothing else, of course, could be suggested. So leaving the others, Thorin and Filey and Killy, and the Hobbit went along the shore to the great bridge. There were guards at the head of it, but they were not keeping a very careful watch, for it was so long since there had been any real need. Except for occasional squabbles about river tolls, they were friends with the wood elves. Other folk were far away, and some of the younger people in the town openly doubted the existence of any dragon in the mountain, and laughed at the grey beards and gamers, who said that they had seen him fly in the sky in the younger days. That being so, it is not surprising that the guards were drinking and laughing by a fire in their hut, and did not hear the noise of the unpacking of the dwarves or the footsteps of the 4 scouts. Their astonishment was enormous where Thorin Oakenshield stepping through the door. Who are you and what do you want? They shouted, leaping to the feet and groping for weapons. Thorin, son of Thrain, son of Thor, king under the mountain. Thorin, son of Thrain, son of Thor, king under the mountain. What the fuck? How do I even pronounce these stupid names?
Thror.
Thror. Basically a grunt, said the dwarf in a loud voice, and he looked at, in spite of his torn clothes and draggled hood, the gold gleamed on his neck and waist. His eyes were dark and deep. I have come back. I wish to see the master of your town. Then there was tremendous excitement. Some of the more foolish ran out of the hut as if they expected the mountain to go golden in the night, and all the waters of the lake turned yellow right away. The captain of the guard came forward. And who are these? He asked, pointing to Philly and Killy and Bilbo. The sons of my father's daughter, answered Thorin. Philly and Killy of the race of Durin, and Mr. Baggins, who has traveled with us out of the west. If you come in peace, lay down your arms, said the captain. We have none, said Thorin, and it was true enough. Their knives had been taken away from them by the wood elves, and the great sword or too. Bilbo had his short sword hidden as usual, but I said nothing about that. We have no need for weapons. We return at last to our own spoken of old. Nor could we fight against so many. Take us to your master. He is at feast, said the captain. Then all the more reason for taking us to him. Bursting Philly was getting impatient at these solemnities. We are worn and famished after a long road, and we have sick comrades. Now make haste and let us have no more words, or your master may have something to say to you. Follow me then, said the captain, and with 6 men about them, he led them over the bridge through the gates and into the marketplace of the town. This was a wide circle of quiet wonders, surrounded by the tall piles on which were built the greater houses, by long wooden quays with many steps and ladders going down to the surface of the lake. From one great hall shone many lights, and there came the sound of many voices. They passed its doors and stood blinking in the light, looking at long tables filled with folk. I am Thorin, son of Thrain, son of Thor, king under the mountain. I return! cried Thorin in a loud voice from the door. Before the captain could say anything, all leaped to their feet. The master of the town sprang from his great chair, but none rose in greater surprise than the raftsmen of the elves, who were sitting at the lower end of the hall. Pressing forward before the master's table, they cried, "These are prisoners of a king that have escaped! Wonder the vagabond dwarves that could not give any full account of themselves, sneaking through the woods and molesting our people!" "Is this true?" asked the master. As a matter of fact, he thought it far more likely than the return of the king under the mountain, if any such person had ever existed. "It is true that they were wrongfully waylaid by the elven king and imprisoned without cause as we journeyed back to our own land," answered Thorin. "But lock nor bar may hinder the homecoming spoken of old, nor is this town in the wood elven's realm. I speak to the master of the town of the Make of the Lake, not to the raftsman of the king." Then the master hesitated and looked from one to another. The elven king was very powerful in those parts, and the master wished for no emptying with him. Nor did he think much of old songs, giving his mind to trade and toll, to cargoes and gold, to which habit he owed his position. Others were different mind, however, and quickly the matter was settled without him. The news had spread from the doors of the hall like fire through all the town. People were shouting inside the halls and outside it. The quays were thronged with hurrying feet. Some began to sing snatches of old songs concerning the return of the king under the mountain. That it was Thor's grandson, not Thor himself, that had come back, did not bother them at all. Others took up the song, and it rolled loud and high over the lake. The king beneath the mountains, the king of carven stone, the lord of silver fountain, shall come into his own. His crown shall be upholden, his harp shall be restrung, his shout shall echo golden, the songs of your son. The woods shall wave on mountains and grass beneath the sun. His wealth shall flow in fountains and the rivers golden run. The stream shall run in gladness, the lake shall shine and burn. All sorrows fail and sadness at Mountain King's return. So they sang, or very like that, only there was a great deal more of it. And there was much shouting as well as the music of harps and of fiddles mixed up with it. Indeed, such excitement had not been known in the town in the memory of the oldest grandfather. The wood elves themselves began to wonder greatly, and even to be afraid. They did not know, of course, how Thorin had escaped, and they began to think their king might have made a serious mistake. As for the master, he saw there was nothing else for it but to obey the general clamor. For the moment, at any rate, and to pretend to believe that Thorin was what he said. So he gave up to him his own great share and set Fili and Kili beside him in places of honor. Even Bilbo was given a seat at the high table, and no explanation of where he came in. No songs had alluded to him in the obscurest way. Was asked for in the general bustle. Soon afterwards, the dwarves were brought into the town amid scenes of astonishing enthusiasm. They were all doctored and fed and housed and pampered in the most delightful and satisfactory fashion. A large house was given up to Tori and his company. Boats and rowers were put at their service, and crowds sat outside and sang songs all day, or cheered every dwarf showed so much as his nose. Some of the songs were old tunes, were old ones, but some of them were quite new and spoke confidently of the sudden death of the dragon, and of cargoes of rich presents coming down the river to Lake Town. These were inspired largely by the master, and they did not particularly please the dwarves. But in the meantime, they were well contented, and they quickly grew fat and strong again. Indeed, within a week they were quite recovered, fitted out in fine cloth of their proper colors, with beards combed and trimmed, and proud steps. Thorin looked and walked as if his kingdom was already regained and Smaug chopped up into little pieces. Then, as he had said, the dwarves' good feeling towards the little hobbit grew stronger every day. There were no groans or grumbles. They drank his health, and they patted him on the back, and they made a great fuss of him, which was just as well, for he was not feeling particularly cheerful. He had not forgotten the look of the mountain, nor the thought of the dragon, and he had besides a choking cold. For 3 days his knees and coughed, and he could not go out, and even after that his speeches at banquets were limited to "Thank you very much." In the meanwhile, the wood elves had gone back up the Forest River with their cargo, and there was great excitement in the king's palace. I've never heard what happened to the chief of the guards and the butler. Nothing, of course, was ever said about keys or barrels while the dwarves stayed in Lake Town, and Bilbo was very careful never to become invisible. Still, I dare say more was guessed than was known, though doubtless Mr. Baggins remained a bit of a mystery. In any case, the king knew now the dwarf's errand, or thought he did, and he said to himself, very well, we'll see. No treasure will come back through Mirkwood without my having something to say in the matter. But I expect it will all come to a bad end, and serve them right." He, at any rate, did not believe in dwarves fighting and killing dragons like Smaug, and he strongly suspected attempted burglary or something like it, which shows he was a wise elf and wiser than the man of the town, though not quite right, as we shall see in the end. He sent out his spies about the shores of the lake, as far northward towards the mountain as they would go, and waited. At the end of a fortnight, Thorin began to think of departure. All the enthusiasm still lasted in the town was the time to get help. It would not do to let everything cool down with delay. So he spoke to the master and his counselors and said that soon he and his company must go on towards the mountain. Then, for the first time, the master was surprised and a little frightened, and he wondered if Thorin was, after all, really a descendant of the old kings. He had never thought that the dwarves would actually dare to approach Smaug, but believed they were frauds would sooner or later be discovered and be turned down. He was wrong. Thorin, of course, was really the grandson of the king of the mountain, and there is no knowing what a dwarf will not dare and do for revenge or the recovery of his own. But the master was not sorry at all to let them go. They were expensive to keep, and their arrival had turned things into a long holiday in which business was at a standstill. Let them go and bother Smaug, and see how he welcomes them, he thought. Certainly, oh Thorin, your son, was what he said. You must claim your own, the hours at hand spoken of old. What help we can offer shall be yours, and we trust your gratitude when your kingdom is regained. So one day, although autumn was now getting far on, and winds were cold and leaves were falling fast, 3 large boats left Lake Town, laden with rowers, dwarves, Mr. Baggins, and many provisions. Horses and ponies had been sent round by the circuitous paths to meet them at their appointed landing place. The master and his counselors bade them farewell from the great steps of the town hall that went down to the lake. People sang on the quays and out of windows. The white oars dipped and splashed, and off they went north up the lake on the last stage of their long journey. The only person thoroughly unhappy was Bilbo. Chapter 11. On the doorstep. Oh, let me actually get more out there. I've run out of water now. Fully run out of water. Now I'm back. Moving on. Chapter 11. In 2 days going, they rode. Americans, please pronounce your words properly.
Road.
Road. In 2 days going, they rode right up the long lake and passed south into the river running. And now they could all see the lonely mountain towering grim and tall before them. The stream was strong, and their going slow. At the end of the 3rd day, some miles up the river, they drew into the left or western bank and disembarked. Here they were joined by the horses with other provisions and necessaries, and the ponies for their own use that had been sent to meet them. They packed what they could on the ponies, and the rest was made into a store under a tent. But none of the men of the town would stay with them, even for the night so near the shadow of the mountain. Not at any rate until the songs have come true, they said. It was easier to believe in the dragon and less easy to believe in Thorin and these wild parts. Indeed, their stores had no need of any guard, for all the land was desolate and empty. So the escorts left them, making off swiftly down the river and the shoreward path, although the night was already drawing on. They spent a cold and lonely night, and their spirits fell. The next day they set out again. Balin and Bilbo rode behind, each leading another pony heavily laden beside them. The others were some way ahead, picking out a slow road, for there were no paths. They made northwest, slanting away from the river running, and drawing ever nearer and nearer to a great spur of the mountain that was flung out southward towards them. It was a weary journey, and a quiet and stealthy one. There was no laughter or song or sounds of harps, and the pride and hopes which had stirred in their hearts the singing of old songs by the lake died away to a plodding gloom. They knew that they were drawing near to the end of their journey, and that it might be a very horrible end. The land about them grew bleak and barren. though once a storm told them it had been green and fair. There was little grass, and before long there was neither bush nor tree, and only broken and blackened stumps, to speak of bones long vanished. They were come to the desolation of the dragon, and they were come at the waning of the year. They reached the skirts of the mountain, all the same without meeting any danger or any sign of the dragon, other than the wilderness he had made about his lair. The mountain lay dark and silent before them, ever higher above them. They made their first camp on the western side of the greater southern spur, which ended in a height called Raven Hill, and thus there being an old watchpost. But they dare not climb it yet, it was too exposed. Before setting out to search the western spurs of the mountain for the hidden door, on which all their hopes rested, Thorin sent out a scouting expedition to spy out the land to the south where the front gate stood. For this purpose he chose battling and filling and killing, and with them went Bilbo. They marched under the grey and silent cliffs to the feet of Raven Hill. There the river, after winding a wide loop over the valley of the Dale, turned from the mountain on its road to the lake, flowing swift and noisily. Its bank was bare and rocky, tall and steep above the stream, and gazing out from it over the narrow water, foaming and splashing among many boulders, they could see the wide valley shadowed by the mountain's arms, the grey ruins of ancient houses, towers and walls. There lies all that is left of Dale, said Balin. The mountain sides were green with woods, and all the sheltered valley rich and pleasant in the days when the bells rang in that town. He looked both sad and grim as he said this. He had been one of Thorin's companions on the day the dragon came. They did not dare to follow the river much further towards the gate, but they went on beyond the end of the southern spur, until lying hidden behind a rock they could look out and see the dark cavernous opening in a great cliff wall between the arms of the mountain. Out of it the waters of the running river sprang, and out of it too there came a stream and a dark smoke. Nothing moved in the waste, save the vapor and the water, and every now and again a black and ominous crowd. The only sound was the sound of the stony water, and every now and again the harsh croak of a bird. What? Okay. Balin shuddered. That was the return, he said. We can do no good here, and I don't like these dark birds. They look like spies of evil. Okay, the front gate. Just barren rock. The dragon is still alive and in the halls under the mountain then. Or I imagine so from the smoke, said the Hobbit. That does not prove it, said Balin. Though I don't doubt you're right. Well, he might be gone away for some time. Or he might be lying out on the mountainside keeping watch. And still I expect smokes and steams would come out of the gates. All the halls within must be filled with his foul reek. With such glooming thoughts, followed ever by croaking crowds above them, they made their weary way back to the camp. Only in June they had been guests in the fair halls of Erin, and though autumn was now crawling towards winter, that pleasant time now seemed years ago. They were alone in the perilous waste, without hope of further help. They were at the end of their journey, but as far as ever it seemed, from the end of their quest, none of them had much spirit left. Posture, okay. Let me actually become comfortable and straight again. Don't shrink, okay. Okay, ma'am, a lady's orders. Now, strange to say, Mr. Baggins had more than the others. He would often borrow Thorin's map and gaze at it, pondering over the runes and the message of the moon letters Aaron had read. It was he that made the dwarves begin the dangerous search on the western slope for the secret door. They moved their camp then to a long valley, narrower than the great dale in the south, where the gates of the river stood, and walled with lower spurs of the mountain. Two of these here thrust forward in the west from the main mass in a long, steep-sided ridges that fell ever downwards towards the plain. On this western side, there were fewer signs of the dragon's marauding feet, and there was some grass for their ponies. From this western camp, shadowed all day by the cliff and wall, till the sun began to sink towards the forest. Day by day they toiled in parties, searching for paths up the mountainside. If the map was true, somewhere high above the cliff at the valley's head must stand the secret door. Day by day they came back to their camp without success. But at last, unexpectedly, they found what they were seeking. Billy and Killy and the Hobbit went back one day down the valley and scrambled among the tumbled rocks at its southern corner. About midday, creeping behind a great stone that stood alone like a pillar, Bilbo came on what looked like rough steps going upward. Following these excitedly, he and the dwarves found traces of a narrow track, often lost, often rediscovered, that wandered on to the top of the southern ridge and brought them at last to a still narrow ledge, which turned north across the face of the mountain. Looking down, they saw that they were at the top of the reed cliff at the valley's head and were gazing down onto their camp below, silently clinging to the rocky wall to the right. They went in single file along the land till the wall opened and they turned into a little steep wall bay, grassy floor, still and quiet. Its entrance, which they had found, could not be seen from below because of the overhang of the cliff, nor from further off because it was so small that it looked like a dark crack and no more. It was not a cave, and was open to the sky above, but at its inner end a flat wall rose up that in the lower part, close to the ground, was as smooth and upright as mason's work, but without a joint or crevice to be seen. No sign was there of post or lintel or threshold, nor any sign of bar or bolt or keyhole. Yet they did not doubt that they had found the door at last. They beat on it. They thrust and pushed at it. They implored it to move. They spoke fragments of broken spells of opening, and nothing stirred. At last, tired out, they rested on the grass at its feet, and then at evening began their long climb down. There was excitement in the camp that night. In the morning they prepared to move once more. Only Bofur and Bumber were left behind to guard the ponies and such stores as they had brought with them from the river. The others went down the valley and up the newly found path, and so to the narrow ledge. Along this they could carry no bundles or packs. So narrow and breathless was it, with a fall of 150 feet beside them onto sharp rocks below. But each of them took a good coil of rope, one tied about his waist, and so at last, without mishap, they reached the little grassy bay. And there they made their third camp, hauling up what they needed from below with their ropes, down the same way they were able occasionally to lower one of the more active dwarves, such as Killy, to exchange such news as there was, or to take a share in the guard below, while Bofur was hauled up to the higher camp. Bumber would not come up either the rope or the path. "I am too fat for such fly walks," he said. "I should turn dizzy and tread on my beard, and then you would be 13 again, and be knotted ropes are too slender for my weight." Luckily for him, that was not true, as you will see. In the meanwhile, some of them explored the ledge beyond the opening, and found the path that led higher and higher onto the mountain. But they did not venture to further. They did not dare to venture very far that way, nor was there much use in it. Up there, a silence reigned, broken by no bird or sound except out of the wind and the crannies of stone. They spoke low, and never called or sang, for danger brooded in every rock. The others who were busy with the secret of the door had no more success. They were too eager to trouble about the ruins or the moon ladders, who tried without resting to discover where exactly in the smooth space of the rock the door was hidden. They had brought picks and tools of many sorts from Lake Town, and at first they tried to use these. When they struck the stone, the handle splintered and jarred their arms cruelly, and the steel heads broke or bent like lead. Mining work, they saw clearly, was no good against the magic that had shut this door, and they grew terrified too of the echoing knowing. Bilbo thought, sitting on the doorstep, lonesome and wearisome. There was not a doorstep, of course, really, but they used to call the little grassy space between the wall and the opening the doorstep in fun. Remembering Bilbo's words long ago, at the unexpected party in his Hobbit hole, when he said they could sit on the doorstep till they thought of something, and sit and think they did, or wandered aimlessly about, and gloomer they became. Their spirits had risen a little at the discovery of the path, but now they sank into their boots, and yet they would not give it up and go away. The Hobbit was no longer much brighter than the dwarves. He would do nothing but sit with his back to the rock face and stare away. Another yawn. 173. Where was I? He would do nothing but sit with his back to the rock face and stare away west through the opening, over the cliffs, over the wide lands to the black wall of Mirkwood and to the distances beyond, in which he sometimes thought he could catch glimpses of the misty mountains, small and far. If the dwarves asked him what he was doing, he's answering, "You said sitting on the doorstep and thinking would be my job, not to mention getting inside. So I am sitting and thinking." But I'm afraid he was not thinking much of the job, but of what lay beyond the blue distance. The quiet western land and the hill and his hobbit hole under it. A large grey stone lay in the center of the grounds, and he stared moodily at it or watched the great snails. They seemed to log the little shutting bay with its walls of rock, and there were many of them of huge size, crawling slowly and stickily along its sides. Ew. "Tomorrow begins the last week of autumn," said Thorin one day. "And winter comes after autumn," said both Bifur. Okay, let me actually check. Oh, you Americans, how would you pronounce that? Bifur. Bifur. Okay, said Bifur. "And the next year after that," said Walling. "And our beards will grow till they hang down the cliffs to the valley before anything happens here. What is our burglar doing for us, since he has got an invisible ring and ought to be especially excellent performer now? I am beginning to think he might go through the front gate and spy things out a bit." People heard this. The dwarves were on the rocks just above the enclosure where he was sitting. And good gracious, he thought. So that is what they are beginning to think, is it? It is always poor meat that has to get them out of their difficulties. At least since the wizard left. Whatever am I gonna do? I might have known that if something dreadful would happen to me in the end. I don't think I could bear to see the unhappy Valley of Dale again. As for that steaming gate. That night he was very miserable and hardly slept. Next day the dwarves all went wandering off in various directions. Some were exercising the ponies down below, some were roving about the mountainside, All day Bilbo sat gloomily in the grassy bay, gazing at the stone, or out west through the narrow opening. He had a queer feeling that he was waiting for something. Perhaps the wizard will suddenly come back today, he thought. If he lifted his head, he could see a glimpse of the distant forest. As the sun turned west, there was a gleam of yellow upon its far roof, as if the light caught the last pale leaves. Soon he saw the orange ball of the sun sinking towards the level of his eyes. He went to the opening, and there, pale faint, was a thin new moon above the rim of earth. That's in 2 minutes. At the very moment, he heard a sharp crack behind him. There, on the grey stone in the grass, was an enormous thrush, nearly coal-black, its pale yellow breast freckled with dark spots. Crack! He had caught a nail and I was knocking on the stone. Crack! Crack! Suddenly Bilbo understood. Forgetting out danger, he stood on the ledge and hailed the dwarves, shouting and waving. Those that were nearest came tumbling over the rocks and as fast as they could along the ledge to him, wondering what on earth was the matter. The others shouted and howled up the ropes. Except Bumper, of course. He was asleep. Quickly, Bilbo explained. They all fell silent. The hobbits standing by the grey stone and the dwarves with wagging beards watching patiently. The sun sunk lower and lower, and their hopes fell. It sunk into a belt of reddened cloud and disappeared. The dwarves groaned, but still Bilbo stood almost without moving. The little moon was dipping to the horizon. Evening was coming. And suddenly, where the hope was lowest, a red ray of the sun escaped like a finger through a rent in the cloud. A gleam of light came straight through the opening to the bay and fell along the smooth rock face. The old thrush, who had been watching from a high perch with beady eyes and a head cocked to one side, gave a sudden thrill. There was a loud crack. A flake of rock split from the wall and fell. A hole appeared suddenly about 3 feet from the ground. Quickly, trembling lest the chance should fade, the dwarves rushed to the rock and pushed in vain. "The key! The key!" cried Bilbo. "Where is Thorin?" Thorin hurried up. "The key!" shouted Bilbo. "The key that went with the map! Try it now while there is still time!" Then Thorin stepped up and drew the key on its chain from round his neck. He put it to the hole. It fitted and turned. Snap! The gleam went out, the sun sank, the moon was gone, and evening sprang into the sky. Now they all pushed together, and slowly a part of the rock wall gave way. Long, straight cracks appeared and widened. A door 5 feet high and 3 broad was outlined, and slowly, without a sound, swung inwards. It seemed as if darkness flowed out like a vapor from the hole in the mountainside, and deep darkness in which nothing could be seen lay before their eyes. A yawning mouth leading in and down. "Hello, Bankang. Hello, you arrived spinning away. Writers just start chapter 12, or rather should start, because I'm going on another ad break right now. Because is the ad gonna start anytime soon? Come on, it's been like a minute and like saying ad starting, so start already so I can take my break. I need to get up, stretch, and get some water. I drink a lot of water while doing these readings. I drink a surprising amount of water. Okay, there you go. Finally. You guys in 3 minutes. Starting ads as soon as I arrive. Indeed. You're the harbinger of ads. No, you brought the ads, not me. You brought the ads. Alright, just a quick little one. Ah shit, I should have grabbed my water. Hang on. I forgot to grab the water. There we go. I did not, in fact, leave the room to grab water. I was still here all along. I was just using my magical telekinesis powers to take the cup to the kitchen, and then on the water filter, fill it up again for me. I was still here. No matter what you heard or what I said, I was still here. I'm always here. I never leave this room. Well, unless I change scenes, then I leave. Then I change rooms. Yeah, let's move on. Get comfortable again and on a good posture too, because when I'm reading, I have a tendency to lean forward to sound more excited, to sound more closely. I lean close to the mic like this. I'm not sure if you can notice the difference in my tone. Now I'm leaning properly straight. Not leaning. I have my back properly straight. Ready. Anyway. Chapter 12. Inside information. For a long time the dwarves stood in the dark before the door and debated until at last Thorin spoke. Now is the time for esteemed Mr. Baggins, who has proved himself a good companion on a long road, and a hobbit full of courage and resource, far exceeding his size, and if I may so possessed of good luck far exceeding the usual allowance. Now is the time for him to perform the service for which he was included in our company. Now is the time for him to earn his reward. You are familiar with Thorin's style on important occasions, so I will not give you any more of it. Though he went on a good deal longer than this, it certainly was an important occasion. But Bilbo felt impatient by now. By now he was quite familiar with Thorin too, and he knew what he was driving at. You mean think it is my job to go into the secret passage first, O Thorin trained son of Oaken Shield? May your beard grow ever longer, he said crossly. Say so at once and have done. I might refuse. I have got you out of 2 messes already, which were hardly in the original bargain. Though that I think already owed some reward, but third time pays for all, as my father used to say, and somehow I don't think I shall refuse. Perhaps I have begun to trust my luck more than I used to in the old days. He meant last spring before he left his old house. But it seems centuries ago. But anyway, I think I will go and have a peep at once and get it over. Now, who is coming with me? He did not expect a chorus of volunteers, so he was not disappointed. Billy and Killy looked uncomfortable and stood on one leg, but the others made no pretense of offering, except old Balin, the lookout man, who was rather fond of the Hobbit. He said he would come inside at least, and perhaps a bit of the way too, ready to call for help if necessary. The most that can be said for the dwarves is this. They intended to pay Bilbo really handsomely for his services. They had brought him to do a nasty job for them, and they did not mind the poor little fellow doing it if he would. But they would all have done their best to get him out of trouble, if he got into it, as they did in case of the Surrounds at the beginning of their adventures, before they had any particular reason for being grateful to him. There it is, dwarves are not heroes, who calculating folk with a great idea of the value of money. Some tricky and treacherous and pretty bad lots. Some are not, but are decent enough, like Thorin. But are decent enough people like Thorin and company, if you don't expect too much. The stars were coming out behind him in a pale sky, barred with black, and the hobbit crept through the enchanted door and stole into the mountain. It was far easier going than he expected. There was no goblin entrance, or roof rough with elves' caves. It was a passage made by dwarves, at the height of their wealth and skill. straight as a ruler, smooth-floored and smooth-sided, going with a gentle, never-varying slope direct to some distant end in the blackness below. After a while, Balin bade Bilbo good luck and stopped where he could still see the faint outline of the door. And by the trick of the echoes of the tunnel, hear the rustle of the whispering voices of the others just outside. Then the hobbit slipped on his ring, and warned by the echoes to take more than a hobbit's care to make no sound, he crept noiselessly down. Down into the dark, trembling with fear. But his little face was set and green. Already he was a very different hobbit from the one that had run out without a pocket handkerchief from Bag End long ago. He had not had a pocket handkerchief for ages. He loosened his daggers in his sheath, tightened his belt, and went on. "Now you're in for it, at least, Bilbo Baggins," he said to himself. "You went and put your foot right in it that night of the party, and now you have got to put it out and pay for it. Dear me, what a fool I was in aim!" said the least tookish part of him. "I have absolutely no use for dragon garden treasures, and the whole lot could stay here forever. If only I could wake up and find this beastly tunnel was my own front hall at home." He did not wake up, of course, but went still on and on, till all signs of the door behind had faded away. He was altogether alone. Soon he thought he was beginning to feel warm. That kind of a glow I seemed to be coming right ahead down there, he thought. He was. As he went forward, it grew and grew, till there was no doubt about it. He was a red light, steadily getting redder and redder. Also, it was now undoubtedly hot in the tunnel. Wisps of vapor floated up and past him, and he began to sweat. A sound, too, began to throb in his ear, a sort of bubbling like the noise of a large pot galloping on the fire, mixed with a rumble as of a gigantic tomcat purring. Thus grew to the unmistakable gurgling noise of some vast animal snoring in sleep, down there in the red glow in front of him. It was at this point that Bilbo stopped. Going on from there was the bravest thing he ever did. The tremendous things that happened afterwards were as nothing compared to it. He fought the real battle in the tunnel alone, before he ever saw the vast danger that lay in wait. At any rate, after a short halt, go on he did. And you can picture him come to the end of the tunnel, an opening of much the same size and shape as the door above. And through it peeps the hobbit's little head. Before him lies the great bottommost cellar or dungeon hall of the ancient dwarves, right at the mountain's root. It is almost dark, so that its vastness can only be dimly guessed. But rising from the rear side of rocky floor, there is a great glow. The glow of Smaug. And there he lay, a vast red golden dragon, fast asleep. A thrumming came from his jaws and nostrils, and wisps of smoke, but his fires were low in slumber. Beneath him, under all his limbs and his huge coiled tail, and about him on all sides stretching away from the unseen floors, lay countless piles of precious things, gold wrought and unwrought, gems and jewels and silver rand standing in the ruddy light. Smaug lay, with wings folded like an immeasurable bat, turned partly on one side so that the hobbit could see his underparts on his long pale belly, crusted with gems and fragments of gold from his long line on his costly band. Behind him were the walls where nearest could dimly be seen coats of mail, helms and axes, swords and spears hanging, and there in rows stood great jars and vessels filled with a wealth could not be guessed. To say that Bilbo's breath was taken away is no description at all. There are no words left to express his staggerment. Since men changed language that they learned of elves in the days when all the world was wonderful. Bilbo had heard tell and sing of dragon hordes before. But the splendor, the lust, the glory of such treasure had never yet come home to him. His heart was filled and pierced with the enchantment and with the desire of dwarves, and he gazed motionless, almost forgetting the frightful guardian and the goal beyond price and count. He gazed for what seemed an age, before, drawn almost against his will, he stole from the shadow of the doorway, across the floor to the nearest edge of the mountains of the nearest edge of the mounds of the treasure. Above him, the sleeping dragon lay, a dire menace even in his sleep. He grasped a great two-handled cup, as heavy as he could carry, and cast one fearful eye upwards. Smaug stirred a wing, opened a claw, the rumble of his snoring changed its note. Then Bilbo fled, but the dragon did not wake, not yet, but shifted into other dreams of greed and violence. Lying there in his stolen hall while the little hobbit toiled back up the long tunnel. His heart was beating and a more fevered shaking was in his legs than when he was going down. But still he clutched the cup, and his chief thought was, "Done it. This will show them. More like a grocer than a burglar indeed. Well, we'll hear no more of that." Nor did he. Balin was overjoyed to see the hobbit again, and as delighted as he was surprised, he picked Bilbo up and carried him out into the open air. It was midnight and clouds had covered the stars, but Bilbo lay with his eyes shut, gasping and taking pleasure in the feel of the fresh air again, and hardly noticing the excitement of the dwarves, or how they praised him and patted him on the back and put themselves and all their families for generations to come at his service. The dwarves were still passing the cup from hand to hand and talking delightedly of the recovery of their treasure, when suddenly a vast rumbling woke in the mountain underneath, as if it was an old volcano that had been made up its mind to start eruptions once again. The door behind them was pulled nearly to and blocked from closing with a stone, but up the long tunnel came the dreadful echoes, from far down in the depths, of a bellowing and a trampling that made the ground beneath them tremble. Then the dwarfs forgot their joy and their confident boasts of a moment before and cowered down in fright. Smaug was still to be reckoned with. It does not do to leave a live dragon out of your calculations if you live near him. Dragons may not have much real use for all their wealth, but they know it to an ounce as a rule, especially after long possession. But they know it, and Smaug was no exception. He had passed from an uneasy dream in which a warrior, altogether insignificant in size but provided with a bitter sword and great courage, figured most unpleasantly. To a doze, and from a doze to a wide awakening, there was a breath of strange air in his cave. Would there be a draught from the little hole? He had never felt quite happy about it, though it was so small, and now he glared at it in suspicion and wondered why he had never blocked it up. Of late he had half fancied he had caught the dim echoes of a knocking sound from far above that came down to his lair. He stirred and stretched forward his neck to sniff. Then he missed the cup. Thieves! Fire! Murder! Such a thing had not happened since first he came to the mountain! His rage is past description, the sort of rage that is only seen when rich folk that have more than they can enjoy suddenly lose something that they have long had but have never before used or wanted. His fire belched forth, the house smoked. He shook the mountain roots. He thrust his head in vain at the little hole, and then coiling his land together, roaring like thunder on the ground, he sped from his deep lair to his great door, out into the huge masses of the mountain palace and up towards the front gate. To hunt the whole mountain till he had caught the thief and had torn and trampled him, was his one thought. He issued from the gate. The waters rose in fierce whistling steam, and his sword blazed into the air and settled on the mountain top in a spout of green and scarlet flame. The dwarves heard the awful rumor of his flight, and they crouched against the walls of the grassy terrace, clinging under boulders, hoping somehow to escape the frightful eyes of the hunting dragon. There they would have all been killed if it had not been for Bilbo once again. "Quick, quick!" he gasped. "The door! The tunnel! It is no good here!" Roused by these words, they were just about to creep inside the tunnel when Bilbo gave a cry. "My cousins! Bofur and Bofur! Bomber and Bofur! I've forgotten them! They're down in the valley! They'll be slain, and all our ponies too, and our stores lost among the others. We can do nothing." "Nonsense," said Thorin, recovering his dignity. "We cannot leave them. Get inside, Mr. Baggins and Bowling. You too, Philly and Killy. The dragon shan't have all of us. No, you others. Where are the ropes? Be quick!" Those were perhaps the worst moments they had been through yet. The horrible sounds of Smaug's anger were echoing in the stony hollows far above. At any moment he might come blazing down or fly, whirling round and find them there, near the perilous cliff's edge and hauling madly on the ropes. Up came Bofur, and still all was safe. Up came Bomber, puffing and blowing while the ropes creaked, and still all was safe. Up came some tools and bundles of stores, and then danger was upon them. A whirring noise was heard. A red light touched the points of standing rocks. The dragon came. They had barely time to fly back to the tunnel, pulling and dragging their bundles, when Smaug came hurtling from the north, licking the mountain sides with flame, burying his great wings with a noise like a roaring wind. His hot breath shivered the grass before the door, and drove in through the crack they had left and scorched them as they lay hid. Flickering fires leaped up in black rock shadows dense. Then darkness fell as he passed again. The ponies screamed with terror, burst the ropes and galloped wildly off. The dragon swooped and turned to pursue them and was gone. "That'll be the end of our poor beasts," said Thorin. "Nothing can escape Smaug once he sees it. Here we are, and here we shall have to stay, unless anyone fancies trampling the long open miles back to the river with Smaug on the watch." It was not a pleasant thought. They crept further down the tunnel, and there they lay and shivered through. Though it was warm and stuffy, until dawn came pale through the crack of the door. Every now and again through the night they could hear the roar of the flying dragon grow and then pass and fade as he hunted round and round the mountainsides. He guessed from the ponies and from the traces of the camps he had discovered that men had come up from the river and the lake and had scaled the mountainside from the valleys where the ponies had been standing. But the door withstood his searching eye, and the little high wall bay had kept out his fiercest flames. Long he hunted in vain till the dawn chilled his wrath, and he went back to his golden couch to sleep and to gather new strength. He would not forget or forgive the theft, not if 1,000 years turned him to smoldering stone, but he could afford to wait. Slow and silent he crept back to his lair and half closed his eye. When morning came, the terror of the dwarves grew less. They realized that dangers of this kind were inevitable in dealing with such a guardian, and it was no good giving up their quest yet. Nor could they get away just now, as Thorin had pointed out. Their ponies were lost or killed, and they'll have to wait some time before Smaug relaxed his watch sufficiently for them to dare the long way on foot. Luckily, they had saved enough of their stores to last them still for some time. They debated long on what was to be done, but they could think of no way of getting rid of Smaug, which had always been a weak point in their plans, as Bilbo felt inclined to point out. Then, as is the nature of folk that are thoroughly perplexed, they began to grumble at the Hobbit, blaming him for what had at first so pleased them, for bringing away a cup and stirring up Smaug's wrath so soon. "What else do you suppose the burglar is to do?" asked Bilbo angrily. "I was not engaged to kill dragons. That is warriors' works. But to steal treasure." Shit, I lost Plague. But you steal treasure. Hello, Tiresias. How you doing? I made the best beginning I could. Do you expect me to trot back with the whole horde of thrower on my back? If there is any grumbling to be done, I think I might have a say. You ought to have brought more 500 burglars, not one. I'm sure it reflects great credit on your grandfather, but you cannot pretend that you ever made the vast extent of his wealth clear to me. I should want hundreds of years to bring it all up, if I was 50 times as big, and Smaug as tame as a hot rabbit. After that, of course, the dwarves begged his pardon. What then do you suppose we should do, Mr. Baggins? asked Thorin politely. I have no idea at the moment. If you mean about removing the treasure, that obviously depends entirely on some new turn of luck and getting rid of Smaug. Getting rid of dragons is not at all in my line, but I will do my best to think about it. Personally, I have no hopes at all, and wish I was safe back at home. Never mind that for the moment. What are we to do now, today? Well, if you really want my advice, I should say we can do nothing but stay where we are. By day, we can undoubtedly creep out safely enough to take the air. Perhaps before long, one or two could be chosen to go back to the store by the river and replenish our supplies. But in the meanwhile, everyone ought to be well inside the tunnel by night. Now, I will make you an offer. I've got my ring, and I'll creep down this very noon. Then, if ever Smaug ought to be napping and see what he's up to, perhaps something will turn out. Every worm has its weak spot, as my father used to say, though I'm sure it was not from personal experience. Naturally, the dwarves accepted the offer eagerly. Already they had come to respect little Bilbo. Now he had become the real leader in their adventure. He had begun to have ideas and plans of his own. When midday came, he got ready for another journey down into the mountain. He did not like it, of course. But it was not so bad now. He knew, more or less, what was in front of him. Had he known more about dragons and their wily ways, he might have been more frightened and less hopeful of catching this one napping. The sun was shining when he started, but it was as dark as night in the tunnel. The light from the door, almost closed, soon faded as he went down. So silent was his going, the smoke on a gentle wind could hardly have surpassed it. And he was inclined to feel a bit proud of himself as he drew near the lower door. There was only the very faintest glow to be seen. Old Smaug is weary and asleep, thought. He can't see me and won't hear me. Cheer up, Bilbo, he thought. He can't see me, and he had forgotten or he had never heard about dragons' sense of smell. It is also an awkward fact that they can keep half an eye open watching while they sleep, if they are suspicious. Smaug certainly looked fast asleep, almost dead and dark, with scarcely a snore more than a whiff of unseen steam. When Bilbo peeped once more from the entrance, he was just about to step out onto the floor when he caught a sudden thin and piercing ray of red from under the drooping lid of Smaug's left eye. He was only pretending to sleep. He was watching the tunnel entrance. Hurriedly, Bilbo stepped back and blessed the luck of his ring, and Smaug spoke. Well, I smell you and I feel your air. I hear your breath. Come along, help yourself again. There is plenty and to spare. But Bilbo was not quite so unlearned in dragon lore as all that, and if Smaug hoped to get him to come near so easily, he was disappointed. No, thank you, old Smaug the Tremendous, he replied. Did not come for... Wait. Oh, okay, it's Bilbo who's talking. I was like, what the fuck is talking now? I did not come for presents. I only wish to have a look at you, as if you were truly as great as they say. I did not believe them. Do you now? Said the dragon, somewhat flattered, even though he did not believe a word of it. Truly, songs and tales fall utterly short of the reality. Oh, Smaug, the shiftest and greatest of calamities, cried Bilbo. Let me try to do some different voices because I wanna do something more monstrous-like, but it's hard. It hurts my throat, but it is part of the point of reading this to try out new voices. Yeah. You have nice This is whispery. Okay. You have nice. This sounds bad. It's difficult to make a voice for a dragon. You have nice manners for a thief and a liar, said the dragon. You seem familiar with my name, but I do not seem to remember smelling you before. Who are you and where do you come from? May I ask? You may indeed. I come from under the hill, and under the hills and over the hills my paths led. And through the air I am he that walks unseen. So I can well believe, said Smaug, but that is hardly your usual name. I am the clue finder, the web cutter, the stingy fly. I was chosen for the lucky number. Lovely titles, sneered the dragon, but lucky numbers don't always come off. Any hit that buries his friends alive and draws them alive again from the water. I came from the end of a bag, but no bag went over me. These don't sound so creditable, scoffed Smaug. I'm the friend of the bears and the guest of eagles. I am the ring winner and luck wearer. I am the bear. Shit, that's not. Why did you do this? Is Smaug talking and then in the same paragraph you do Bilbo talking? It is confusing. These don't sound so creditable, scoffed Smaug. I am the friend of bears and the guest of eagles. I am the ring winner and luck wearer. And I am barrel rider, went on Bilbo, beginning to be pleased with his riddling. That's better, said Smaug. But don't let your imagination run away with you. This, of course, is the way to talk to dragons. If you don't want to reveal your proper name, which is wise, and don't want to infuriate them by flat refusal, which is also very wise, no dragon can resist the fascination of riddling talk or of wasting time trying to understand it. There was a lot here which Smaug didn't understand at all. I expect you do, since you know all about Bilbo's adventures, to which he was referring. But he thought he understood enough, and he's chuckling his wicked inside. I thought so last night, he smiled to himself. Lake man. Some nasty scheme with those miserable sub-trading lake men. Or am I lizard? I haven't been down that way for an age and an age, but I will soon alter that. Very well, oh barrel rider, he said aloud. Maybe Barrow was your pony's name, and maybe not, though it was fat enough. You may walk unseen, but you did not walk all the way. Let me tell you, I ate 6 ponies last night, and I shall catch and eat all the others before long. In return for the excellent meal, I will give you one piece of advice for your good. Don't have more to do with dwarves than you can help. Dwarves? Said Bilbo in pretended surprise. Don't talk to me. Don't talk to me, said Smaug. I know the smell and taste of dwarf. No one better. Don't tell me that I can eat a dwarf-ridden pony and not know it. You'll come to a bad end if you go with such friends. Thief barrel rider. I don't mind if you go back and tell them so from me. But he did not tell Bilbo that there was one smell he could not make out at all. Hobbit smell. It was quite outside his experience and puzzled me mightily. I suppose you got a fair price for the couple last night, he went on. Come now, did you? Nothing at all? Well, that's just like them. And I suppose they are skulking outside in your job. You should do all the dangerous work and get what you can when I'm not looking for them. And you will get a fair share. Don't you believe it? If you get off alive, you will be lucky. Bilbo was now beginning to feel really uncomfortable. Whenever Smaug's roving eye, seeking for him in the shadows, flashed across him, he trembled, and in unaccountable desires seized hold of him to rush out and reveal himself and tell all the truth to Smaug. In fact, he was in grievous danger of coming under the dragon's spell. But plucking up courage, he spoke again. You don't know everything, old Smaug the Mighty, he said. Not all alone, not good alone, brothers hit. You admit the us, laughed Smaug. Why not say us 14 and be done with it, Mr. Lucky Number? I am pleased to hear that you had other business in these parts beside my gold. In that case, you may, perhaps, not altogether waste your time. I don't know if it has occurred to you that even if you could steal the gold bit by bit, a matter of 100 years or so, you could not get it very far. Not much use on the mountainside, not much use in the forest. Bless me, had you never thought of the catch? A 14th share, I suppose, or something like it. Those were the terms, eh? But what about delivery? What about cartage? What about armed guards and dolls? And Smaug laughed aloud. He had a wicked and wily heart, and he knew his guesses were not far out, though he suspected that the lake men were at the back of the plans, and that most of the plunder was meant to stop there in the town by the shore that in his young days had been called Esgaroth. You will hardly believe it, but poor Bilbo was really very taken aback. So far all his thoughts and energies had been concentrated on getting to the mountain and finding the entrance. He had never bothered to wonder how the treasure was to be removed. Certainly never how any part of it that might fall to his share was to be brought back all the way to Bag End on the hill. Now a nasty suspicions began to grow in his mind. Had the dwarves forgotten this important point too? Or were they laughing their sleeves on at him all the time? That is the effect the dragon talk has on the inexperienced. Bilbo, of course, ought to have been on his guard, but Smaug had rather an overwhelming personality. I tell you, he said, in an effort to remain loyal to his friends and to keep his end up, that gold was only an afterthought with us. We came over hill and under hill by wave and wind for revenge. Surely, O Smaug, the unaccessibly wealthy, you must realize that your success has made you some bitter enemies. Smaug really did laugh. Devastating sound which shook Bilbo to the floor. While far up in the tunnel, the dwarves huddled together and imagined that the Hobbit had come to a sudden and nasty end. Revenge! He snorted, and the light of his eyes lit the hall, from floor to ceiling like scarlet lightning. Revenge! The king under the mountain is dead, and where is his king that dares seek revenge? Girion, lord of Dale, is dead, and I have eaten his people like a wolf among sheep. And where are his son's son that dare approach me? I kill where I wish, and none dare resist. I lay low the warriors of old, and their like is not in the world today. Then I was but younger and tender. Now I am old and strong. Strong, thief in the shadows. He gloated. My armor is like tenfold shields. My teeth are swords, my claws spears, the shock of my tail a thunderbolt. My wings are hurricane, and my breath death. I have always understood, said Bilbo in a frightened squeak. The dragons were softer underneath, better in the region of the chest. But doubtless one so fortified has thought of that. The dragon stopped short in his boasting. Your information is antiquated. He snapped. I am armored above and below with iron scales and hard gems. No blade can pierce me. I might miss it, said Bilbo. Surely there can nowhere be found the echo of Lord Smaug the Incredible. What magnificence to possess a waste coast of fine diamonds. Yes, it is rare and wonderful indeed, said Smaug, absurdly pleased. He did not know that the Hobbit had already caught a glimpse of his peculiar undercovering of his previous visit, and was itching for a closer view for reasons of his own. The dragon rolled over. Look, he said. What do you say to them? Dazzling, marvelous, perfectly flawless, staggering! Exclaimed Bilbo aloud, but what he thought inside was, Old fool, why there is a large part in the hollow of his left breast as bare as a nail out of his shell. After he had seen that Mr. Baggins' one idea was to get away. Well,
I really must not detain your magnificence any longer, he said, or keep you from much needed rest. Ponies take some catching, I believe, after a long start, and so do bugglers, he added as a parting shot, as he darted back and fled up the tunnel. It was an unfortunate remark, for the dragon spouted terrific flames after him, and fast though he sped up the slope, he had not gone nearly far enough to be comfortable before the ghastly head of Smaug was thrust against the opening behind. Luckily, the whole head and jaws could not squeeze in, but the nostrils sent forth fire and vapor to pursue him, and he was nearly overcome and stumbled blindly on in great pain and fear. He had been feeling rather pleased with the cleverness of his conversation with Smaug, but his mistake at the end shook him into better sense. Never laugh but live it live, dragons, Bilbo, you fool, he said to himself, and it became a favorite saying of his later, and passed into a very proverb. You aren't nearly through this adventure yet, he added, and that was pretty true as well. The afternoon was turning to evening when he came out again and stumbled and fell in a faint on the doorstep. The dwarves revived him and doctored his corpses as well as they could. Oh shit, I had to stretch. But it was a long time before the hair on the back of his head and his heel grew properly again. Jesus Christ, he actually got burned. He had all been singed and frizzled right down to the skin. In the meanwhile, his friends did their best to cheer him up, and they were eager for his story, especially wanting to know why the dragon had made such an awful noise, and how Bilbo had escaped. But the Hobbit was worried and uncomfortable, and they had difficulty in getting anything out of him. On thinking things over, he was now regretting some of the things he had said to the dragon, and was not eager to repeat them. The old thrush was sitting on a rock nearby, with his head cocked on one side, listening to all that was said. It shows what a new temper Bilbo was in. He picked up a stone and threw it at the thrush, which merely fluttered aside and came back. The bird, said Bilbo crossly. I believe he's listening, and I don't like the look of him. Leave him alone, said Thorin. The thrushes are good and friendly. He's a very old bird indeed, and it's maybe the last left of the ancient breed that used to live about here. Thanks to the hands of my father and grandfather. They were a long-lived magical race, and this might even be one of those that were alive then, a couple of 100 years or more ago. The men of Dale used to have a trick of understanding their language and use them for messengers to fly to the men of the lake and elsewhere. Well, you have news to take to Lake Town, alright, if that is what he is after, said Bilbo. I don't suppose there are any people out there in the trouble with trash language. Why, what has happened? Cried the dwarves. Do get on with your tale! So Bilbo could tell them all he could remember, and he confessed that he had a nasty feeling that the dragon guessed too much from his riddles and added to the camps and ponies. I'm sure as we knows we came from Lake Town and he helped. I'm sure he knows we came from Lake Town and had help from there. But I have a horrible feeling that his next move may be in that direction. I wish to goodness I had never said that about Barrow Rider. It would have made even a blind rabbit in these parts think of the lake man. Well, it cannot be helped. It is difficult not to sleep in talking to a dragon. But so I have always heard, said Bali, anxious to comfort him. I think you did very well, if you ask me. You found out one very useful thing at any rate. You got home alive, and that is more than most can say who have had words with the likes of Smaug. It may be a mercy and a blessing yet to know of the bare patch in the old worm's diamond waistcoat. That turned the conversation, and they all began discussing Dragon's Lane, historical, dubious and mythical, and the various sorts of stabs and jabs and uppercuts, and the different arts, devices, and stratagems by which they had been accomplished. The general opinion was that catching a dragon napping was not as easy as it sounded, and the attempt to stick one or prod one asleep was more likely to end in disaster than a bold frontal assault. All the while they talked, the thrush listened, till at last, when the stars began to peep forth, the silently spread its wings and flew away. And all the while they talked and the shadows lengthened, Bilbo became more and more unhappy with his foreboding grew. More and more unhappy, and his foreboding grew. At least he interrupted them. I'm sure you are very unsafe here, he said. And I don't see the point of sitting here. The dragon has withered all the pleasant green. And anyway, the night has come and it's cold. But I feel it in my bones that this place will be attacked again. Smaug knows now how I came down to his hall, and you can trust him to guess where the other end of the tunnel is. He'll break all this side of the mountain to bits if necessary, to stop up our entrance, and if we were matched with it, the better he will take it. Jesus Christ. He'll break all this side of the mountain to bits if necessary, to stop up our entrance, and if we are smashed with it, the better he will like it. You are very gloomy, Mr. Baggins, said Thorin. Why has not Smaug blocked the lower end, then, if he's so eager to keep us out? He has not, or we should have heard him. I don't know. Because at first he wanted to try and lure me in again, I suppose, and now perhaps he's waiting till after tonight's hunt, or because he does not want to damage his bedroom if he can help it. But I wish he would not argue. Smaug will be coming out at any minute now, and our only hope is to get well in the tunnel and shut the door. He seemed so much in earnest that the dwarves at least did as he said, though they lay shutting the door. It seemed a desperate plan, for no one knew whether or how they could get it open again from the inside. And the thought of being shut in a place from which the only way to let through the dragon's lair was not one they liked. Also, everything seemed quite quiet, both outside and down the tunnel. So for a longish while they sat inside, not far down from the half-open door, and went on talking. The talk turned to the dragon's wicked words about the dwarf. Bilbo wished he had never heard them. Or at least he could feel quite certain that the dwarves now were absolutely honest when they declared that they had never thought at all about what would happen after the treasure had been won. We knew it would be a desperate venture, said Thorin. And we know that still. And I still think that when we have won, it'll be a time enough to think what to do about it. As for your share, Mr. Baggins, I assure you we're more than grateful, and you shall choose your own 14th, as soon as we have anything to divide. I'm sorry if you are worried about transport, and I admit the difficulties are great. The lands have not become less wild with the passing of time. Rather the reverse, but we will do whatever we can for you, and take our share of the cost when the time comes. Believe me or not, as you like. From that, the talk turned to the great hall itself, and to the things that Thorin and Balin remembered. They wondered if they were still lying there, unharmed in the hall below. The spears that were made for the armies of the great King Bladdertain, long since dead. Each had a thrice-forged head, and the shafts were inlaid with cunning gold, but they were never delivered or paid for. Shields made for warriors long dead. The great golden cup of Thor, two-handed, hammered and carved with birds and flowers, whose eyes and petals were dews. Coats of mail, gilded and silvered and impenetrable. The necklace of Girion, Lord of Dale, made of hundreds emerald greens of grass, which he gave for the army of his eldest son in a coat of dwarf-like rings, the like of which had never been made before, for it was wrought of pure silver to the power and strength of triple steel. But fairest of all was a great white gem, which the dwarves had found beneath the roofs of the mountain, the heart of the mountain, the Arkenstone of Thrain. The Arkenstone, murmured Thorin in the dark, half dreaming, with his chin up his knees. It was like a globe with 1,000 facets. It shone like silver in the firelight, like water in the sun, like snow under the stars, like rain upon the moon. But the enchanted desire of the horde had fallen from Bilbo. All through their talk, he was only half listening to them. He sat nearest to the door with one ear cocked for any beginnings of a sound without. His other was alert for echoes beyond the murmurs of the dwarves, or any whisper of a movement from far below. Darkness grew deeper and deeper, and he grew ever more uneasy. Shut the door, he begged them. I fear the dragon in my narrow. I like the silence far less than the uproar of last night. Shut the door before it's too late. Let me take a second over here. I fear the dragon in my marrow. I like the silence far less. I like the silence far less than the uproar of last night. Shut the door before it is too late. Something in his voice gave the dwarves an uncomfortable feeling. Slowly, Thorin shook off his dreams, and getting up, he kicked away the stone that watched the door. Then they thrust upon it, and it closed with a snap and a clang. No trace of a keyhole was there left for it on the inside. They were shut in the mountain. Not a moment too soon. They had hardly gone any distance down the tunnel when a blow smote the side of the mountain, like the crash of battering rams made of forest oaks and swung by giants. The rock boomed, the walls cracked, and stones fell from the roof on their head. What would have happened if the door had still been open? I don't like to think. They fled further down the tunnel, glad to be still alive. While behind them outside, they heard the roar and rumble of Smaug's fury. He was breaking rocks to pieces, smashing wall and cliff with the lashings of a huge tail, till their little lofty camping ground, the scorched grass, the thrashed stones, the snail-covered walls, the narrow ledge, and all disappeared in a jumble of smithereens. And an avalanche of splintering stones fell over the cliff into the valley below. Smaug had left his lair in silent stealth, quickly soared into the air, and then floated heavy and slow into dark, like a monstrous crow, down the wind towards the west of the mountain, in the hopes of catching unawares some meeting or somebody there, and of spying the outlet to the passage which the thief had used. Thus was the outburst of his wrath when he could find nobody and see nothing, even where he guessed the outlet must actually be. After he had left off his rage in this way, he felt better, and he thought in his heart that he could not be troubled again from that direction. In the meanwhile, he had further vision to take. "Bear rather," he snorted. "Your feet came from the water side, and up the water you came without a doubt. I don't know your smell, but if you are not one of those men of the lake, you had their help. They shall see me and remember who's the real king under the mountain." He rose in fire and went away south towards the running river. Chapter 13, Not at Home. Oh boy. We have like 6 minutes left. 6 minutes left now. I'm starting to feel tired. I am starting to feel tired. No. Is there like... When's the paragraph? Jesus Christ. There is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 7, 8 pages before a paragraph. I think I'm just gonna end here. My throat is tired. I'm feeling tired. So I can stall for just a little bit. Can stall for just a little bit before I actually end. Let's see what are fun things I'm gonna do. Tomorrow I don't think I'm gonna stream unless Lapis really wants to stream. If we are going to stream, we might stream AL War, but I don't mind not streaming. I could stream later after we are done, like maybe 3 hours, but I think I'll also be tired. Lately I've been feeling quite tired, like my eyes especially have been feeling quite tired. I need to go back and doing eye exercises. I used to do eye exercises to like combat the tiredness, because I think it's because of using the screen too much and not looking far away. I hardly ever leave my cave. I am my wizard tower. I hardly ever leave my cave / wizard tower. So I think I have problems with what you call like you're just using too much the eye on one distance. You have like to focus on distance or something like that. Yeah, I think sometimes when I go out, it feels like it's a bit difficult to see in the distance. I don't think I'm like losing my eyesight, but I think it's just my eyes tired, like from reading, from having the screen on my face all day, because I do work and play on the computer, so 90% of my life, my wake time on a screen. Is it 90%? Yeah, it's pretty much 90%. The rest is doing housework. The rest, the 10%, is it 10% of my time doing housework? I guess it is. Some days it's more or less, but I don't need to do lots of housework every day. No, there's my time with my dogs. Is my time with my dogs just 5%? Meh, whatever. Anyway, I've been quite tired lately. Crystal gets stiff if you only look at things that are close. You gotta look far away to keep it flexible, preserving eyesight. Yeah, something like that I heard. That the crystal of the eye gets bad if you don't stretch it. the crystal of the eye gets bad if you don't stretch it. And I have a problem with I don't have like problems with eyesight, but I might have in the future. From reading like for close range, I'm still perfectly fine. Yeah, reading, sometimes I do get tired of reading, but it's not like I'm losing eyesight that I can't read, that I need glasses yet. It's just really tiredness. And unfortunately, I think one thing that does not help is that my neighbor, he rose the height of his house, added like an extension to it, an ugly extension, I might add. It looks pretty bad and raw from where I am, because now it blocks part of my window. Now my room is dark, and I have to basically keep it like the light on even during the day. And it's winter, and it's over here like rains a lot, so there's also lots of clouds, which makes it even more dark. And like, god damn it, I don't think that's helping my eyesight. Not having a lot of natural light coming, I don't think that's helping. So I'm thinking, I'm starting to like do my writing work, which I do on the laptop during the day, on a different room. What do you call it? The TV room? Guest room? Entertainment room? I don't know the name of rooms in English, but it has the best light aside from being outside. So it is pretty useful. I could go outside, honestly. Take my laptop outside and just sit on the chair and play with my dogs. But it's kind of cold though. It's kind of cold to do that. I used to do that a long time ago. When I was like on university. I would just stay outside, even in the winter, working, and have my dogs around. Shit, I pressed the wrong button. Damn it, I'm running ads now instead of snoozing them. Ah! Shit. Bro got that dog in him. Well, I am a dog boy. I am the dog boy. There's nothing better than just like working with and having your dog like what's it called? Have your dog just on your legs, on your feet, jumping on your lap, wanting a little bit of attention, wanting some scratches. That is nice. But my dogs are dirty. That's the problem. We have a big garden, and if you give a bath to them, like 2-3 days they're dirty again. So that's also annoying. They're pretty dirty. Long garden, yeah, that gets a bit muddy. There's some parts the dog in question. Of course. I am dog coded after all. I have like a big garden over here, and there's like 2 trees, and these trees are too thick. So under the trees, the grass died. So there's like 2 big patches where there's like gets muddy, and my dogs like to go there. So and it rains often here. Even if it didn't rain, that part of the ground gets a bit dusty. So 2-3 days they're dirty again. You wash them. You just wash them for I don't know, as a why do I even wash my dogs? Why do I even give them a bath? What's the use of it even? 2-3 days they're all fucking dirty again. They like to run in the grass. They like to roll in the grass, roll in the dirt. I give them a bath. I have to block them from going to the grass until they are like dry, because otherwise they'll just roll in the dirt, in the mud if it's raining, in the dirt. They'll literally roll in the dirt and then come out and there's like a bunch of mud stuck to their fur. Like, fuck's sake. God damn it. Why do you do this? I know it's your nature, but do you not enjoy being good smelling? Why do you need to be dirty like this? You got them pigs. You're not dogs, they're pigs. They got pig blood in them. So I used to do that. It was pretty nice. But it also feels very cold, especially my feet. God. I had to put like 3 or 4 socks. Today, right now, I have like 2 big jackets for winter. Like those. We don't really have snow jackets or things like that. We have thick big jackets for winter. I don't exactly like using these jackets because they're too hot. They're actually too hot. But they're actually good for warming my feet up. I use the jackets. I put one jacket inside the other and I use them to warm my feet up in the winter because we don't really have heating. No, I do have a heater. I have a fan that can be used into heating, but it's easier to just use the jackets to heat me, you know. Feet, yes, we are feet chads over here. No engy, no engy, no engy. Feet are good, feet are nice. Wash feet, good smelling feet. No dirty, no smelly, nothing bad over here. Feet are just nice, especially when it's a woman's feet with wearing high heels. There's nothing better than that. Anyway. Yeah, maybe in summer I could do that. Problem is my dad also does that a lot. He goes on his phone and he stays out like in the afternoon or maybe drinking some, because he's retired, he's always home. So he goes out in the chair and in the table outside and then just starts scrolling on his phone or something. Or he just grabs a little beer and drinks it in the afternoon, like just relaxing there in the chair. So it will be competing for the chair outside. That's one of the reasons also why I stopped doing that. But maybe the brightly lit room will be enough for me. Now, let's see. Tomorrow might not. I didn't put anything on my stream, on my schedule, so I'm likely not gonna stream. If we do stream, it's gonna be AI War that I played once. I'm addicted to 4Xs lately. 4X games. I started playing Dominion 6, which is basically the most complex 4X I've ever seen. Dominion 6. It launched this year. It has so many spells that I have to like take the manual has 400 pages. The manual says all the units, all the spells, all the items, yeah. But still, that's 400 pages. It's basically a huge ass wiki. You need to read a huge ass wiki before you can play the game. That might also be helping. That also might be helping my eyesight because I'm reading a lot in that game. Because I need to read all the spells of the nations that I will use, the items that you can forge, the units. You need to do a lot of thinking. Not exactly a lot of reading, but there is a considerable amount of reading. And let's see. At least AOR is simpler and more fast-paced. Friday there is Grammary. I hope we finish. I'm gonna working on details unless I get too drawn into adding endless details for her, because there's quite a few that I do need to, that I'm certain. But there could be even more later, more details later that I can add, because I also am gonna try to upscale her to give her face a little bit more detail, and also like 2 spots need more resolution for more detail. If I don't get too, I'm gonna get too into editing these details, and it's gonna take two more streams. It's definitely gonna take 2 more streams for me to actually finish her. It's kind of annoying because I wanna use her. Maybe I already can like swap her new PNG, so we have an updated grammar floating behind me. And then Saturday there's Turok. I'm actually enjoying Turok quite a lot, so I'm gonna play it again. And then Sunday, Warcraft 3. Suffering, pain in Warcraft 3. Human. I guess that's the end of the human slash blood elf campaign or something. It's gonna be suffering. It's gonna be difficult. That game has not been merciful. The game has not been very merciful. And then there's a new week. Use grammar, finish grammar, headbutt grammar. Indeed. Gotta all of these things repeatedly at the same time. Use grammar repeatedly, finish grammar repeatedly, finish on grammar repeatedly, have grammar finish you repeatedly, headbutt grammar. Pat patties. Get patted, get patted, get patted. Oh, wait. Shit. What about her emotes? Now I just looked. Now I just realized that her emotes are gonna look different now. Maybe it'll still be recognizable that it's her, but she does have a bit of a different look now. Nah, who cares? Maybe I'll work on some emotes a bit after I'm done with her. And then I also want to do like a bit of continue like slowly doing the rigging. I've been quite loppy on that area. I've been forgetting to rig. I've been like meaning to rig myself my own live 2D model for a while now, but I keep forgetting about it. Keep delaying it. Anyway, that's all that I had to say. That's all that I had to ramble about. How do we raid? Did I ever raid Frankie? Might as well give him a raid. Or Geltaran. It's been a while since I raided Geltaran or Severin. Or other people. Decisions. As always, making a decision on who to raid is never easy. You know what? Riku is playing a retro game. He actually Riku stopped his Valorant Rainbow. He's actually playing something retro. He playing Majora's Mask, which is actually my favorite Zelda. So, holy shit! What is this fucking new raid interface? Twitch? Where the fuck are these people? Twitch? Okay, following. Oh, now it shows all my follows on the raid menu. That's interesting. Okay. Search Riku. Let's give because this is a retro. What the fuck is this? Oh, I can get into his stream now. I can see his stream without needing to open a. How long did it take to actually get this feature? I can see the person that I'm raiding, the stream that person that I'm raiding without having to like open my follows on a different tab and open their stream. I can see it from the raid stream, from the raid menu now. How long has Twitch been a thing, and how long did it take? How many years did it take for this to happen? This is amazing. Anyway, let's begin the raid. Now, that's it for today. See you guys Friday. Take care of your waifus, take care of your husband. Those Grandma's gonna start the milking now. Good luck, have fun, bye bye. Oh shit, I forgot your raid message. There we go, raid message.